So welcome to first mastering in Java updates via Java user group Gujarat. So this is our first meetup. Hope my screen is visible to all you.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. Thanks for confirmation. Yep. So this is our first meetup for the Java user group Gujarat community. Uh, as we can see, what is a Java user group as a community? Some of you might aware about this particular communities, and some of you might not aware. So JUG is offering a networking and the learning opportunity to extend the Java expertise. It has different communities in the different cities or different even countries. Currently in India, as you know, we have 11 communities available or active communities available in the JUJ groups. So we are one of the communities which will be part of these GUJ groups, which will be share the knowledge of Java related things, new updates related, many technologies related things uh, all over the world. So you can join these communities via our LinkedIn profiles, our Twitter profiles. So we can communicate over there. We will share the most recent knowledge of Javas. What are the new things available to the Javas, and the things available in the new updates into the Javas. So why we have built this Java communities for the Gujarat perspective? As you know that in India we have currently 11 communities. So GUJ Gujarat will be one of them communities. In the Gujarat, as you know that it is a very much technology hub right now. We have developers from embedded technologies to the IoTs and AI technologies. But for particularly Java technologies, we have seen very less in the community related things. We have very less meetups over there. We have very less knowledge sharing related to Javas. So we thought that we should have one communities which belongs to Java, which belongs to the developers who are working for the Java. We have good number of professional industry expertise in the Java. So let's come together and share our knowledge with the Javas. So this Java Gujarat communities will help you to grow your knowledge related to Javas. We will share time by time new updates over there. We will invite new speakers from the industry experts, might be from the Indias or even out of the Indias. So you will get the good number of knowledges from these communities. So please do share our communities post. Please subscribe to our community post. And if you have anything related to our community which can help to grow the Java communities, please let us know so we can have more over there with the communities. So for this is our first meetup. So let's introduce our speaker. So the first speaker, our speaker is Vikas Rajput. He has 10 years of experience in the Java technologies. He has worked with the Indian clients as well as for the abroad clients. So he has very good knowledge of Java from starting to the end-to-end perspectives. And if you are following Vikas Rajput, you might have seen their followers, right? In the Twitters, in the LinkedIn, he has very good grip over the social medias, and he is sharing very good knowledge over the social media. So you must follow Vikas Rajput. He is sharing the technology related things in the very simple languages. So yes, apart from this, he loves to build the side projects. He has many good references over there. So you can even connect with him for such things. Yep, he loves to read the books and spending time with the rulers. Yep. So just FYI, he is a very newborn baby with him. So he's very spending his time with his baby also. Yep. And the another person is me, myself, Bharat Ranpariya. I have 13 years of experience, and I love to learn the different technologies and meetups with the different peoples, different communities, and so on. So I am regularly joining the different meetups like Agile meetups and the different other technologies meetups. In the Gujarat, we have many technology meetups like AWS meetups, Java Docker meetups, and so on. So there were less meetups related to Java. So we thought that we should have these particular communities. So starting from this JUJ Gujarat, this is our first meetup, and we will have the same continuous effort in the future also. So thanks all for joining, and let's begin our meetup journey from this day one. Yep. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you so much, Bharat, for that introduction. And before we go and jump into the today's topic, yeah, first let me share my screen so that we know what we are talking. Okay. Okay. So first, so before we go and jump into our today's session, right? Uh, I just want to thank everybody to join, who have spent their Saturday to learn something the way Bharat Bhai has said, right? And we have started this new community, and we are really looking forward for a very positive response. And I'm happy to see all of you have joined in big numbers. And yeah, so before we go and start our today's topic, right? Uh, I want to take a step back and want to explain what is the thought process when we have decided to go with this versions of Java in our updates. We have seen that most of the people who are working into Java, they are mostly used to with Java 8, and they know syntax changes and the updates, the major updates that were introduced in Java 8, right? But with the later version of Java, it's been a bit of on and off, right? People when they is been asked what are the new updates in Java after Java 8, very less people they know, and very less people they use those things actually in their project, right? So that's why we thought that why not, let's go with this version 9 to version 22, and let's cover all the awesome updates that the Java has, right? So uh, before, without doing any further delay, I would like to start the topic of today. Before that, I just want to make sure my IntelliJ is working. Is my screen visible to everybody?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And okay, it will take some time to load the screens. Meanwhile, we can start with our today's session regarding the updates. So mostly in our today's session, what we have done is we have focused on top 10 Java updates, right? Don't consider that there are only 10 Java updates. There are more than that, but we have picked up, the 10 practical updates which you can directly go and start using them from the day one, right? And I believe that this session is going to be really helpful for you. I'll be practically running the code and showing you what was the previous code and how we have got the new code working, and how the new code can basically help you, and what are the actual updates they go under the hood, how they work under the hood, and how practically, the aspect of this session is to practically help you understand the updates, right? So that you know from now onwards, how you can change your existing code, how you can leverage it into your current project, and how you can go about it, right? Whether to use it or not use it, based on your choices, right? So the first update that I want to talk about is the uh, type inference updates, right? In the which was introduced in Java 10, right? And what this means is, if you are familiar with the previous, I mean, few other programming languages like JavaScript, right? You may have came across a keyword called var, right? And in JavaScript, it's very easy. You just go and declare something using the var keyword. You don't need to provide the actual data type of that keyword, and but Java was a bit restrictive in that manner, right? But after Java 10, what the updates that came was that after Java 10, you can directly go and mark any of the data type as a var, and you don't need to specify the data type of it, and you are just good to go about it, right? So okay, so my workspace is set up. I hope my IntelliJ is visible. Just give me one confirmation.
Visible.
Okay, all right. So I have made this little project, okay, where I can actually run the code, show you like how these updates are affecting you and how you can practically understand the code. And I'll be also sharing the GitHub profile of this particular project. And you don't need to take any sort of notes. That's the beauty of this session. You just have to sit back and listen to this session and, just to follow me, right? And after the session, I'll be also sharing you the GitHub link of this session where I have prepared a very nice note, right? And you can just go to it, refer to it, and I have explained each and every classes, which is part of this example, right? So just sit back, relax, and take your time and try to understand things, right? Practically try to understand things. Now, I'll go to this class here, okay? Let me know if the fonts are visible. Or are they small?
Yep, visible, clearly.
Visible, okay. All right. So prior to Java 10, this is how you go and define any sort of, data type or variable in Java, right? You need to specify this, let's say if I want to create a list of books, right? I have to do it like this. I have to mention list of books and then books. And then I have to mention that, what implementation of list I want to use, right? It is a bit of repetitive in nature, very verbose. So Java guys have thought that why not remove this, using something which is there similar in JavaScript. But the JavaScript where and the Java where they work still differently, right? Don't consider that the same concept is applied and copied in Java. That's not true. So Java has introduced the where keyword, but after that also it is strictly typecast as well, because Java is a strictly typecasting language, right? If you know, that's why we define this data types before we declare any sort of variables, right? So that is why it was a bit of a challenge when we want to use keywords like where, right? Because where is not typecasting, is not implementing a strict typecasting, right? Because if you do a where, you can just go and mention anything in there. You can provide a string value, integer value, or you can even provide a list, array, object, anything, right? But that was a challenge with Java. So what the thing here is, whenever you declare something as where, right, then the Java, what it does, the compiler basically, it tries to then check the initializer logic of that particular variable, right? So let's say in this case, although I have provided the where keyword, right? But after that, whatever is I have written as the part of my initializer code, Java compiler is going to check that. It's going to check what is the data type present there, and it will allocate the same data type to your variable. So in our first section, what we did is we initialized the books variable using the same old way, right? So if I hover on this books, right, I will see that the book is assigned this data type, list of books, right? And list is an interface. But if I do the same thing here and I replace this with my where keyword, right, then what will happen? Compiler is going to check the initializer logic, and in my initializer logic I have used the array list, right? So ultimately this books is now going to have the data type as array list of books instead of list of books, because Java still needs some logic to decide what is the final data type going to be for that variable, right? So that is how the where keyword works, right? It is still a strict typecasting, it is using it. So you can just go and you can use all your list methods here, right? You can access all your list methods here because it is still implementing the typecasting, right? Which is allowing you to use all your methods of that particular class in the same way, right, which you are using. Okay, so that's the where keyword. Apart from this, if you look at some other examples of where keyword, so let's say in this case, right, where I have just defined a name variable, okay, using the where keyword, and I have just initialized the value, then using this, compiler will, infer this initializer logic, and compiler will be able to understand that I'm trying to allocate a string value to this variable, so it will going to give it a data type of string. So if I put my mouse onto it, you will see that, you know, I got a string type from it, right? So you can go and literally start using name dot all the string methods, right? Same goes with this one. In the last example, I have used the integer value to it. So the type which it will get, the data type it will get is the integer, right? So very handy if you want to reduce the verbose in Java, because Java, the online tech community has always criticized Java based on its verbose nature, and this is one of the attempts to reduce the verbosity in Java, right? So that was a where keyword for you, right? And I have just explained the same things, whatever I have mentioned here in the slide. And let's move on to the next update, which was first introduced in Java 13 preview, and then it became final in Java 15, which is the text blocks, right? Now, for the text blocks, if you remember, in the good old days, we used to initialize any sort of complex strings in Java, maybe using string builder or string buffer, or or you may just go and just use the plus operator, and you just go and try to do concatenate your complex string and make some string, right? So before we continue this session, so in the end of the session, we will be conducting a whole Q&A round. So where I'll be answering all your questions regarding the updates, right? So let's, you guys, I would request all of you guys to wait, note down your questions, and we will discuss everything in the end so that we can take the best use of time, because we have a very limited time, and in that limited time, we have to cover everything, right? So we will be having a dedicated session for the Q&A, and we'll be giving you guys opportunity to ask your question, and we can also brainstorm all these updates as well, right? So hold on to your questions, keep a note, and so continuing with this string templates. Sorry, it's not a string template. The package name is, I'm actually want to demonstrate the text blocks basically. So prior to Java 13, so what we used to do whenever we want to create some complex string in Java. So let's say if I want to construct some JSON string into Java, right? Then this is how I used to do, right? I have to use all these escape keywords, backslashes, right, to escape the special characters in my string. I used to use a plus operator in order to concatenate the different parts of the string, and that I'll end up making this whole ugly string, right? Not readable, very, very, bad developer experience. And whenever you encounter any sort of bugs, you will be always confused, like how your string is looking like, and very, very hard to debug, right? So from Java 13 onwards, in the preview feature, you got this new update, which is called a text block, right? So how does the text block works? So if I take an example of the same string, right, then this is how I can initialize a text block, where I can mention 3 quotes, okay, from the start, and 3 quotes in the end, and in between I can write my whatever logic I want to write. Whether you want to construct some complex HTML into a JavaScript, or you want to write generate a JSON object, right? You just don't need to worry about escaping all the special characters. That all that thing is already taken care for you by the compiler, and that is how you can go about it. You can also go and build some complex SQL queries if you want. It's very much readable, and very debugging friendly code. You know what is happening in what part of the string. After this, right, let's say but in this string also there was some sort of challenge. Let's say if you want to generate some dynamic string, right? Let's say I want to generate this dynamic JSON, where in ID I want to put some dynamic value, okay? Then again, what I have to do is I have to use the formatted method of string, and then I have to provide my values like this, right? And then it will help me generate the dynamic string of it, right? Of this, then I'll be able to create this dynamic JSON string, right? This is also a little bit optimized in the latest version of Java. So in Java 22, you will see that there is a new concept called string template that's been introduced in that is part of the Java 22, and it's still in the preview mode itself. So how you can use it? So by default, the preview features are disabled. So in the later releases of Java, it will be made final. So you don't need to like manually enable the preview mode to see the benefits of that feature, right? So here, what you can do, you can use it like this. So if I talk about the same string, okay, then what I can do is I have to use str dot, okay, and then it will be followed by my text block, okay. I have to mention this str, okay, and then followed by the text block. And inside my text, right, what I have to do, I have to use a backslash followed by curly braces, and within the curly braces I have to mention my variables, right? So like in this case, I have my ID here, so I can just go and mention my ID like this, so that it will be then start showing. So once you like go and print this JSON, right, you will be able to happily see that you will, in the end, you will get a very beautifully looking dynamic string, right, at the end. Right, so that is how you use the text blocks, string templates, right, in the new versions of Java, right? That was the updates, right, about the string templates and text blocks, right? So in the future releases, you will see those things coming up. Okay, so we have covered string templates as well. These are the few benefits of it, right? Now moving on to the next one. So the next awesome feature which you can see is the records introduced in Java 14, right? Now, what are the records? So before records, let's try to understand what was the problem and that is being solved using records, right? So prior to Java 14, right? Let's say if I want to create some POJO classes, right, in Java. So normally what we do, we just go and create the fields, right, in the POJO classes, name, age, email, right? And then after what you do, you create you generate a getters and setters method from it, right? Then you also need to provide some default constructors to it, right? And then if you want, you also have to, if you want to see your objects in a little bit user friendly and readable way, you also need to implement the toString. And if you're using some collections, and if you're using want to use your custom class as a key in hash map, or if you want to like do some comparison based on your object, you will also override the equals in the hash code method. That is a whole lot of stuff you used to do prior to Java 14, right? So in the Java 14, what we have done is we have got this new concept called records. Now, what is records? So if I take an example of records, right? So all of this code, right, if you see, it's kind of a boilerplate code, because whenever I want to create some some POJO class in Java, I have to define my fields. And if you been working in some other programming languages, like JavaScript, Python, they all have this type of thing, right? They give you some default getters and setters method, right? They provide you all that stuff, all that boilerplate code with it, right? You don't need to go and mention them everywhere, right, manually. So after Java 14, we have now the concept called record. Now, what is a record? My same example, right, where I used to do all these things, right, in more than 50 lines, right, that all this logic, right, will be trimmed to this one single line of code. This is how you can go and create some records in Java, where whatever fields you need to define, you just mention it like this. So you have to use public record, the name of the class, and then the fields which you are interested to have, right? You can mention all your fields here, and that's it. This is the main method I have created, but literally you can create a record like this. It's just a one line of code, right? So that is the beauty of records in Java. With records, there are a couple of things which you need to keep in mind, and you also need to should be aware of like how records work behind the scene, right? By default, a record is a immutable class, right? So what does that mean is when once you create the object of a record, right, you cannot go and change the value of record, right? That's the thing about records. So if I take an example here, right, my person after class, right, and I do this, so I need to initialize my record though, in a similar way. So whatever fields I have, so let's say I give a object called Vikas, I give him some age, let's say 30, then I give some email address abc@gmail.com, like this, right? So once I've created this record class, right, what it will do, so behind the scene, it is generating the all argument constructor for you, right? It is also giving you a it is also implementing the equals hash code method for you, toString methods for you, right? It is also generating the getters method for this particular fields, right? So that is how this is done. But the thing which I said is the immutability part of it, right? So this record is immutable, meaning that once I've created this record, right, I cannot go and change the value of this object, the name, right? So let's say I made it Vikas, right? But if I want to go and set the value to some other thing, right, that thing I cannot do, right? So you have to mention all your values while you are initializing the value itself, but later if you want to change it, you cannot change it, right? Because it's immutable by nature, right? So while using records, you just keep in mind that when you have some requirement of mutability, right, then you may not use record, right, because that's not good suited for that. But if you want to go ahead and create immutable classes, you can go ahead and use these records, right? So that's the benefit of it. Okay. And I know, like, a lot of us may be using Lombok libraries as well to generate the getters and setters, but these records are, mean to solve these types of problems. If apart from using getters and setters and generating the toStrings and all this boilerplate code, if you're not using Lombok for any other reason, then using Lombok may not make sense. You just go and use this records, which comes by default in Java, right? So with records, there are a couple of other things which I also want to cover. Let's say if I want to, if I'm like not happy with the the constructors, right? Let's say by default, it will create all argument constructor for me. If I only want to have two constructors, right? A constructor with two fields, then I can go and create my own constructor inside my record class. So this is my record class. And if I'm not happy with the default implementation, I can always go and override my values, my constructors, right? And I can always implement my own logic, right? So this is how I can go and I can do things, right? I have created a constructor with two fields, and yeah, that's it, right? Let's say if I want to write some default logic or want to run some sort of logic inside my constructor, right? Then this is also another way I can do it, right? I can put some additional logic inside this code as well. Like if I based on the the age, if I only want to allow age with some valid value, I can do all those types of validation related logic that is always there in record, right? So you can go and customize your records class as well, right? You can also go and override the equals implementation, equals hash code, toString implementations in record if you're not happy with whatever default provided by the record, right? So you can literally go and change the logic, your comparison logic, your equality logic based on your requirement, right? So record comes with all these types of features, but the important thing to understand here is that records are immutable, right? So that is the one of the things you have to keep in mind. Now, if you have noticed, I'm not sure like how many of you, but in other programming languages, there is a concept called tuple, right? You can go and create some tuples, right? Java does not have a concept of tuple, but you can use records to achieve that functionality, right? let's say, now what do I mean by that, so this is my one of the example, right? Like say I have a very, let's say I have a very, let's say I have a requirement, a very one-time requirement, right? That requirement is not that often. I want to create some sort of, DTO in my Java class. So normally what we used to do, we used to go and create a DTO in our one of the packages, right? We might be having one common package where we put down all our DTOs or model objects, and we create our that DTO there, right? But that DTO is not that much, reusable, right? You only have that one-time requirement of using it, right? So what you can do is you can literally go and create a record at the local method level itself. Let's say in this case, if I want to create a record and this record is not reusable, I know that it's not going to be reusable, so I can go and create a record at the local method level itself. How I can do that? I can just go and create a record like this, let's say product, which have two fields, name and price. And then inside my method, I can just go and literally initialize that record as my Pojo classes, right? And I can define the logic to instantiate it, and I can use that object in my subsequent part of my methods, right? So if you have some that type of requirement, then records can also help you serve those types of requirements. So records are really nice. You can go and explore records in more detail, and yeah, and I'm sure it will help you, reduce the boilerplate codes, and yeah. So after records, the another nice feature which came as part of Java 14 was the meaningful null pointer exceptions, right? Now, what do I mean by meaningful null pointer exception? So let's say that in this particular thing here, so prior to Java 14, what we have to do is whenever we because after the introduction of the functional programming, we do a lot of types of chainings, right? We chain a lot of methods onto one single object, and we create a long chain, right? And in that long chain, if any of your or data variable is null, then Java simply tells you that you got a null pointer exception at so and so line. The null pointer exception is not that meaningful, right? So I've already prepared one sample demo where I can go and demonstrate you this. So this is one of the example where what I have done is I've created a main class. Now in my main class, I have two classes called person. Person has an address. An address is again a separate class, and address has a city, right? So in my main class, I will create a main method, and in my main method, I will create a person object, okay, and I'll set the address to it. I have not added the city to that particular address instance. And what I'm doing, I'm trying to create, I'm trying to fetch address from the person and the city from the address. And then on that city, I'm trying to do an uppercase operation, a string operation, right? Since this city is a null, okay, then I should get a null pointer exception. Now let's see in Java, 1.8, how the things were, right? Java 1.8 or version prior to Java 14, right? You can use any of them. And if I try to execute this code, right, I'll get a null pointer exception right here like this. And my null pointer exception does not tells me what is wrong at 10 line number 10, right? It is just telling me that, there's something wrong here, right? But what is something which is wrong? It does not tells you that, right? So that is the thing with this problem. So a lot of times, when we face such type of issues, we don't know which exact part of this, variables are having issues. Now, if we see the same thing, right, in the after versions of Java, you will see that, now the null pointer exceptions became more meaningful. By meaningful, what do I mean? If you see this message, you will see that, that there is something wrong with the string.to uppercase method. Okay, so you will know that there's something wrong here. If you again scroll right, you will see that, address.getCity is null, right? So you will come to know that, okay, my address.getCity is null. So that is why this operation is throwing a null pointer exception, right? So that is very meaningful, especially when you are using a lot of method chainings, right? So that was a null pointer exception which was introduced in Java 14. Now coming to the the other features, right? So the other features are enhanced switch expressions, right? Now let's see the hands-on example. So in the switch expression, right? So if you see this, you always, if I've been coding in Java for for a few years, then you must be knowing that working with switch cases were always a pain, right? And a switch has its own way of working, right? So this is how usually we go and create some switch statement in Java, right? Let's say I want to provide some integer value, and based on that integer value, I want to return some sort of status, right? Let's say integer 1 is mapping to pending status, integer 2 is pending to shipped status, integer 3 to delivered, 4 to cancelled, right? Like this. If I want to create a method based on the integer value, it should give me the string value, right? Then if I want to do it using this old switch cases, what I have to do is I have to create case 1, then add my logic here, and then I have to use this break statement. If I don't give this break statement, the switch statement will start behaving very weirdly, right? And this was one of the things which was noticed by Java guys, and they have thought of optimizing this, right? So now in the new one, what you have to do, you just go and define your switch statements like this. You don't need to provide any sort of break statement, because many times when you work with a switch statement, you will miss break statements. In fact, I have done it a lot of times, right? So you can go and literally use this type of lambda expression like expression, where you can define your switch, you define your variable here, and in your cases you can go and put your values and just mention your output. That's it. The rest of the thing will be taken care by the compiler itself, right? So that is something, a new enhanced way of using the switch expression. Now let's say if you want to mix up multiple conditions into one, let's say this is my one of the example, where based on the day's weekday, I want to return whether this day is my weekday or this day is my Saturday, I mean my weekend. If I pass Saturday, my program should return a weekend. If I pass Monday, my program should return weekday, right? So I've written such type of logic where I have mixed up multiple cases, okay? So from Monday to Friday, if I find values like that, I will return weekday. If I get Saturday or Sunday, I'll return weekend, right? So this is my switch case where I'm combining multiple cases. In order to do the same thing using the new switch, right, you just go and define all your multiple values using a comma, and you're good to go, right? So much better readable and very easy to understand, right? You don't need to remember writing the break clauses, or do it in such a way, right? So that is the new updates came as part of the Java 14. So after this, there has been another update which came, which is called a pattern matching, right? So for the pattern matching, let's say that so whenever I have to use my instance of keyword, right, using the inside Java, this is how I normally go and write my code, right? So let's say this is my object, which is containing some string, okay? And let's say instance of, if I want to, based on the type of this object, I want to do some sort of operation, right? Then this is how normally I used to do. So object instance of, then I have to provide the data type of that object. If it is an instance of string, do some string operation on it. If it is an instance of integer, do some integer operation on it, right? So if I want to do something like that, right, then this is how normally we used to do, right? We used to do this instance of, and then inside the condition itself, we have to again cast this object into string. Now that was a bit kind of a stupid thing we have been doing in Java, right? Because compiler was not that smart enough. So in this if condition, I know that this object is going to be my string only, right? That's why then only this code will come inside this if condition, right? But that was again a sort of verbosity in Java, and we have been dealing with it in this way. In the new version, now what we can do is we can do it in a bit better way, right? So let's say I want to do the same thing, object instance of string. Then instead of typecasting, checking it, right, inside my if condition, I can just define a variable here, str, or you can give any name. It's just a variable. And if this condition is true, the value of this object will be transferred to this variable string. And then inside your method, you just go and start doing your work, right? You can just go and start using that str, and you can literally go and do some string operations on it, right? So that is how easy it has become now. All right. And let's say if you want to do some, mix it up with some other multiple logic, right? Then how you do it? So let's say, so this was the example where I was mentioning that if my string is if my object is instance of string, do some string operation. If my object is instance of integer, do some integer or related stuff, right? Now you can mix it up like this as well, right? If you want to, if it is string, do this. If it is number, integer, then create a variable called number, and you can inside that block you can use that variable like that, right? Now coming to the complex part of this condition. Let's say I want to mix up multiple condition, right? Now let's say that if my object is instance of integer, and if that value is greater than 10, do this. Then I can also go and combine this two logics into one in this way. So this is the usual thing which we have just seen, right? That if this is instance of integer, put the value of object inside my number, and you can just go and directly start using it right away in that condition itself, right? So you can just do and number greater than 10, and then only your that particular block will be executed, right? So this is how easy it has become, right? So that's the beauty of it. Now let's say that we want to combine this thing, right, with the switch case, right? The switch update which we have seen, right? Because the switch is also coming up with some nice logic, right, where we can use lambda like expression, and we can run our switch cases, right? So let's say that this is my switch, okay, and the same example, right? So I'm passing my switch inside my object inside my switch, right? Then I'm mentioning the type here. So if this object is of type string, then only it will execute this condition, and I can write my logic inside my switch case like this. If it is integer, then the value of this object will be transferred to this I, and I can start using it, inside that block, right? So that's how easy it has become, right? And prior to this switch was also not able to handle the null values. So if you remember, before we pass something to our switch case, we have to check whether that object is not null or not, right? So that is also not required anymore. You can just go and put some case for a separate null value itself, and you can write some handle it accordingly here, right? So these are the updates which came, right, into switch as well, right? So all these features, this pattern matching, for instance, of is available in Java 16 as a final update, and prior to it, it was available since Java 14 in a preview mode, right? So if you're in some other previous versions of Java like 14 or 15, you may need to enable the preview mode in order to use that feature. But from 16 onwards, you're good to go without enabling anything, right? And the previous switch expression, which we have seen, it's part of the final Java 14 release, right? So this is also we have done. And coming to this example, so from the Java 17 onwards, right, we have now a new concept of sealed classes, right? Now, what is sealed classes, right? Let's say that, in Java, if you want to, let's say, if you want to restrict the hierarchy of your inheritance, right? Then how you can do it? You did not have any other way, right? Let's say you have built some plugin and you have transferred that plugin to the customer, right? And if you want to restrict that plugin, right, you can, prior to Java 17, you can just go and ask that person to not use it, right? But that customer was not that much obedient to you, so he may go and start extending your class, and he can like literally go and customize that particular behavior, and you can't do anything about it, right? You may use all sorts of different hacks, but there is no good way of restricting the the hierarchy of some given class, right? So with the sealed keyword, right, now we can do that as well. We can go and restrict the our inheritance hierarchy. We can literally go and tell like, this is my class and these are the people who can use my class, right? That is the kind of restriction we can apply. So let's say that I have created a class called employee, and this is my abstract class. So you can basically use this sealed concept on both abstract and interfaces, right? So this is my abstract class. I have created an employee class, and this is, I have marked this as a sealed so that no one can go and extend my employee class. But I'm allowing three classes to extend this class, which is, if it is an employee, then employee can be of three types: full-time employee, contractual employee, and freelancer, right? And this is how I'm only allowing these three classes to extend this particular class, right? So employee, full-time employee, should be marked as final so that it cannot be further extended, is not further extendable. And also I have to extend my parent class, which is the employee, right? And then I do the usual stuff. I can go and implement the abstract method, and I can write the logic of this full-time employee, right? So this is how, using the sealed keyword, I am allowing only these three classes to basically extend my employee class, right? So this is the kind of restriction you can basically apply. And let's say that in this hierarchy, right, let's say you have 5 to 10 such classes, you have permitted, right? And out of those, if you still want to give some permission to some class to be further extendable, right, then you can do that as well. So let's say I have this class contractual, and I have given it a keyword of non-sealed. That means that this can be allowed further to be extendable, right? So any other class, if they want to extend this class, right, then they can go and extend this class as well. So I have created so it's a contractual employee class. So I have also got a new class called remote contractual employee, right? So that class can extend that particular class. Okay, so that is how, if you still want to allow from that permitted list of class some class to be extendable further, you can also do that using the non-sealed keyword, right? So that is the sealed keyword and non-sealed keyword, and how you can go and use that classes, right? So this is a nice demo. So once I'll get I'll show you the GitHub repo as well. So if you want to play around with all these demos, you can do it using these classes, right? So that was a sealed keyword which became permanent in Java 17. And now let's talk about one of the very booming features of the modern Java, right? So this the concept is called virtual threads. Now the virtual thread concept is being considered as one of the very revolutionary concepts in Java, right? Because if you remember the Java 8, one of the most talked about feature of Java 8 was called lambda expressions, the functional programming stuff, right? Now that is the same kind of hype this virtual threads are getting now. So it's now part of the Java 21, right? Now, what is this virtual threads doing and what are the benefits of this virtual threads? I'll explain you in a bit. Before understanding like what is a virtual thread in Java, right? You have to understand how conventional threads used to work in Java, right? So when you talk about some conventional threads in Java, right? So a conventional thread is basically a OS level thread, right? So let's say if I create some thread in Java, that thread is still considered. Of course, if you go to some online definition of thread, Java threads, they will mention that threads are basically lightweight, right? But by lightweight, it means that it is not that much lightweight, right? That thread is still consuming some sort of CPU, some sort of memory, right? And it is still a native OS thread. It's not some other type of thread, right? So there is always a limitation of like how many number of threads you can create on your machine. It also depends on the capability of your machine. If your machine is allowing high CPU RAM, you can go and create more. But if your system is limited, right, then you cannot go and create. You don't have the luxury of creating, more number of threads. If you still want to go and scale your system, then you go to some cloud and you just do some sort of horizontal scaling, right, on your to your application, and that's how you achieve the scalability, right? So threads are, so first thing, the conventional threads are basically heavyweight in nature. They are also not scale friendly, right? You cannot just go and scale it, right? It's not scaling, it's not at all scalable, right? So that was other challenge. And the other thing, right, with the virtual thread is that the virtual thread is basically kind of a thread which is basically blocking your code, right? So what do I mean by that? Let's say that I have created some Java program. Okay, I'll instead show you, right, what is it. So the blocking concept of the virtual thread, I will explain you a bit, right? Now since we have now a bit of understanding like what is a conventional thread, now let's see what is a virtual thread. So virtual threads are super lightweight, right? So you can just go and literally create some virtual threads and you can just go and scale them, right? You can just go and literally create millions of threads. That is allowed, right? Virtual threads are that much lightweight. Virtual threads are basically non-blocking in nature. I'll show you in a bit like what do I mean by this blocking and non-blocking, what is this heavyweight and lightweight stuff, right? And so let's go and see the practical, like how the virtual threads are and how you can start using virtual threads. So let's say this is my class, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm using the executor service and I'm creating few. So this is still old Java, right? Where I'm creating 5 threads into my thread pool, and using the executor service, I will be running, my parallel code here, right? So I am running a loop of 10, okay? And so consider that I'm creating 10 tasks, right? And to all the 10 tasks, right, I'm doing some sort of stuff. So let's say I'm, marking the thread to sleep for some time, right? I'm making the wait for 1 minute, okay? And to each task, I'm allocating the value of 5 so that we know that, which task is having which number. So we can uniquely identify some tasks, right? So if you see this, right? And if I just go and, run this program. Okay, once I'll run this program, then you will be able to see the output. So you will be able to see thread, the current thread, which is basically running that particular thing. Invalid source release. Okay, I think there's some issue. Maybe the issue is from here. So let me check this, why it's the issue. This is select alternative JREs and I'll go inside the tools. I'll go to this. Let's see if that compilation error goes away or not. Okay, it's not going. Okay, so I'll go to project structure, accept. I'll use 22. Wait, I'm already using this one. I'll use add SDK, JDK, D drive, tools, 22, this. Let's see if this works. Apply. What is there in the source? So I'm using this one. Let's total use. Let's see if this works or not. Module settings. Okay, guys. So what I can do is I can simply explain it verbally, like what it is, and then I'll fix it. Okay. So the project is there. Okay. Project is there available on GitHub. So you can literally go and play around with the project. So I'll explain it. I actually wanted to show you and run it to you and show it to you, but it's okay. Let me explain that, like how it normally works. Okay. So with the concept of, threads, normal threads, what normally happens is, let's say in this particular example, what I have done is I've created 5 threads. Okay. And that 5 threads, right? And I'm doing 10 tasks using the 5 threads, right? So normally what will happen is, if you can follow the IntelliJ, so what will happen is thread 1 will be created from the pool, and that will deal with task 1. Okay. Then this thread 1 will basically wait for the task 1 to finish. Okay. So if I just do copy, paste, right? So I have 5 tasks like this, and this is the conventional threads. Okay, this is not the virtual one. So this is how normally these 5 threads will be created, because my initial pool size is this much, 5. So I will create the 5 tasks, right? And this is how it will work. And my each thread will basically wait for the task 1 to finish, right? And then it will go, once it will be free, that thread, then it will go and pick up the other threads, right? So let's say that thread 1, once it will get finished, then it will pick up my other thread, other task, which is task number 6. And same goes with the others as well. So the thread which is starting your tasks is also going to be ending your task. So the same thread is going to be there, right? So if I give you an analogy, right, a real world analogy, right, then you can consider that, let's say that you went to some restaurant, okay, and you ordered something, right, in that restaurant. So waiter basically comes to you and asks you like, sir, what would you like to have? And you may be in a confused state, so you are not able to decide like what you want to order, right? So bad waiter, what it will do, it will basically sit with you once you are done with your whole activity, right? Once you are done choosing with all your menu, the waiter will going to be wait for you to order that stuff, right? So he will sit with you, he will ask you, oh, okay, yeah, please go ahead and book all your thing. Once you are done, until you are done, I'll be sitting right next to you, right? So that is how that waiter will waste his time, right? And he will basically going to be wasting his time with you, right? He is not using the best use of his time. He's not doing the best use of his time, right? And such kinds of restaurant may get closed in a very less time, right? Because that is now a normal restaurant works, right? So no, so now instead of this, right, what a virtual thread does, right? So a virtual thread basically works like a modern restaurant, right? Where a waiter, once you go to a restaurant and you are confused, right, you are not able to make out your mind like what you want to order, so he will just pass on the menu to you and he will just say, sir, why don't you decide, and I just go ahead and take up other customers. And after some time, when you actually decide something, he will come back to you and saying, he will like go and then process your order, right? So while the waiter has given you the you some tasks, so he's not waiting and sitting with you, and he's using the best use of his time, and he's at the same time he's also serving other customers, right? So that is why when we say virtual threads are non-blocking in nature, because in this case threads are blocking. So this my career thread, right? Consider that this is my career thread, which is doing my activity. So once this activity is done, until this activity is done, he will block my program till this time, right? So normally in Java, what we do, since threads are blocking, right? So what we do, we create more threads, right, in order to do our parallel activity. And those threads, they go and consume the different cores of our system, and that is why threads are considered heavyweight, right? And these threads, right, basically what they do is, even if this thread is idle, it is still a native OS thread. So OS has allocated some sort of CPU, some sort of memory to it, right? So even if this thread is not doing anything, he is just sitting idle with you until you are done, he is still consuming the resources. And that is why it is considered a heavyweight. As compared to the virtual threads, right? What virtual thread does, right? So if you see the output of this, right? So the virtual threads output will look like something this, that once so it has created a virtual thread, and the name of the number of the virtual thread will be 1, right? So the same thread who has started this main, let's say I make it a start the task and end the task, right? So it may happen that virtual thread number 1 may have started the task, but virtual thread number 2 may end the task. But in the other example, right, in the first example, what happens is my thread number 1 who has started the task is going to be ending the same task, because he's literally sitting with you, right, until you are done. So that is the advantage of virtual thread, right? So virtual thread, basically under the hood, they still use the OS threads, but they are super lightweight in nature. So there is an abstraction layer created on top of that OS native threads, right? And so what under the hood, it is still utilizing the native OS threads, but it is not waiting with you until you are done. It is going and doing some other activity, right? And once that task is done, he is now coming back, and so that particular thread may not come back, but some other virtual thread may come back, right? So that is how this virtual threads work, and that's why virtual threads are highly scalable. So so by scalable, I mean that with virtual threads, you may not need to go and scale your cloud, right? Because your machine itself is capable of now spawning up multiple threads, which may not be possible using the actual conventional threads, right? And also it is not very a good way or good thought process to create more number of threads, because conventional threads are limited in nature. There is always a good number of threads you can create, and there's always a, you will always hit the limitation of your system, right? So that is why with the conventional threads are not scalable, the virtual threads are hence scalable, right? So this was the same thing which I actually wanted to show, but I don't want to waste others' time in fixing my bug. So this entire repository, right, is let me see if I think there's one more update pending. So that is what I've actually explained, that conventional threads are OS native threads, which makes them heavyweight. Virtual threads are super lightweight as compared to the conventional threads, because they mount and unmount on the carrier thread, right? By carrier thread here, I mean the OS native threads, right? So, my waiter who has came to take, give me the menu, he will give me the menu and he will go away. So he will mount himself and he will unmount himself. And the other waiter may come in once I'm like done with my, deciding the menu, he may come in and he will pick my order, right? And he will mount himself again. And then once he's done, he's going to unmount, right? So that's why we are mounting and unmounting the virtual threads on the carrier threads, while that was not the case with, native Java threads. So that was about the virtual threads, okay? And that is why this virtual threads concepts are being considered one of the revolutionary concepts, right? But there are also pros and cons of virtual threads. So I would encourage you to go and, read more about virtual threads online. And there are some really nice talks available on YouTube. You can literally go and watch them, because there are also cases where you can go with virtual threads and you can't go with virtual threads. Some of the things you can keep in mind that, when your threads are doing some IO activity, then using the virtual threads may make sense. But if your threads are doing some CPU related activity, right, then using virtual threads may not make that much sense, right? So those are like few of the things to keep in mind. So you can take a deep dive into it and you can learn more about it, right? And the last feature of the day is the unnamed variables, right, which I want to cover quickly. So this in unnamed variables, what we are doing is we are actually so this feature actually came as part of the latest Java 22. So in this unnamed variable, what you do is, let's say I created a class called car, and my car has a method called drive, right? Now, in Java, from now onwards, we can actually use this underscore as a valid variable name, right? Now, what this actually signifies is, and you cannot go and literally start using this variable once you have created it, right? Because this is actually an unnamed variable. Now, unnamed variables are mostly for those types of variables, right? Those types of variables which you don't want to use later, right? Which is not reusable, which you don't, let's say you created some variable, but you don't intend to use it, right? Then only you should create some unnamed variable. If you intend to use the variable, you should not use the underscore keyword to use the unnamed variables. A good example could be, let's say you're trying and catching some exception, but you may not be, using that exception inside your catch block. Then it's good to go and create, put it the name of underscore, and you are just good to, mark that particular variable as unnamed variable. This also means that you are intentionally letting other developer knows that you don't want to use this variable, and that is the way you have, that is why you have basically created a underscore, you have give the name of underscore, right? So that is the intention behind introducing this variable. It is just to it is just more clearer now, right? Because prior to this, whenever you used to create some variable and don't use it, right, normally all your this static code analysis tool, they basically throw some error that that you have created this thing, but you have not added any logic to use this variable. So all those sorts of errors you may not get, right, while you run all those kinds of tools, right? So that is why this new concept has came in Java 22. If you don't want to use it and still want to declare it, right, then you just go and have this, underscore. Right, so that was all about the updates I wanted to share, right? And yeah, and there are like lot more other updates as well, right? So based on the feedback of this particular session, if you think that there is no future sessions required on the other updates of Java, then do let us know. We will be able to arrange those kinds of stuff with you. This was just our first session, so we have decided to only pick this 10